researchers claim that bachelorette parties are destroying LGBT safe spaces. In an op-ed in the Boston Globe, researchers Vincent Jones II, the director of the Health Promotion Center at York College, and Laurie Essig, the director of Gender, Sexuality, and Feminist Studies at Middlebury College, explore why LGBTQ+ bars and venues are failing in Provincetown. They coined the phrase hetrification, or the heteronormalizing of queer spaces. Their research shows that as LGBTQ+ people have gentrified P-Town, it has led many affluent, straight, frequently white women to see it as a safe haven of their own, where men won't hit on them. In their report, researchers state, quote, like gentrification, we witness a cycle of displacement where those with the least resources are left with nowhere to go. The women are displaced by rape culture and seek refuge in queer spaces. But the queers are faced with tolerating the heterosexual gaze or not showing up at all. We know the end of this story because we know how gentrification works. Follow the money. Hetrification will destroy queer spaces and maybe even queer culture itself. End quote. I've got so much wrong with this story. First off, these people are going after women who want to have a nice night out but are afraid of getting raped and saying, oh no, don't come here.
They're scared of the white girl, wasted girl.
Yeah. We wanted marriage equality, but now we don't want to share our bachelor or bachelorette spaces. We want corporate support, but then all we do is complain when people commercialize pride. Don't alienate our allies. My God, this is where we wanted to be.
I think the key thing here is when that like hetrification becomes toxic, right? When these spaces are dominated by these bachelorette parties, and we're not able to have our culture in these spaces where we can meet other queer people, and they're dominated by this straight culture.
But when does that happen, Max? When is Hunter's like overtaken by a bunch of bachelorette parties? That doesn't happen. It'll be like a couple.
We talked about brunches here with the Ron DeSantis business, and brunches are primarily
our
straight
house
people.
and
Palace.
Lips. This is a little secret in the LGBTQ community that principally our entertainment venues, South Florida being an example, are completely dominated by straight guests and straight women. If you go into Lips, it is very dominated by who these researchers are attacking.
And you'll see very few gay groups on those occasions.
There's still plenty of gay people
but not,
in there.
Not comparatively.
But not.
You're right. We don't have our bachelor party at the drag show.
Georgie's Alibi,
right.
Or but Hamburger Mary's and Hamburger Mary's in most markets are principally driven by the same kind of women, and then straight women that are having fun and parties and they're enjoying themselves. The question here is, does this harm? The real thing the researchers are getting to is that it harms our queer space,
our sense of community,
our sense of community even in our neighborhoods. If we can't think about what manners, because we defy every rule almost of every community in the country. But if you're in Tampa and there was a Hamburger Mary's, which there was, it's no longer there, but it was on 7th Avenue in Gaybor, was the nickname of Ybor City, but the Hamburger Mary's was completely dominated by straight women. It was a gay business, gay owned, gay workers, gay servers, gay performers, dominated by straight market.
And because it's kind of like a tourist thing to do, okay?
Right.
And that makes it more straight.
Yeah.
And they want to embrace us. Let's embrace them. And when they say they're not going to get hit on, possibly true. But a lot of men are still going to want to touch their boobs because that's what we do.
Yeah.
I think
I had no idea you were going.
But that's the issue, right? Is when you have people who don't really understand intimately queer culture, when you have people who straight women who say things like, oh, I want a GBF and things like that, that really don't understand the nuances of the queer community, that want to come into these queer spaces, don't want to learn about those nuances, and then make it a more toxic space for the people that don't really have anywhere else to turn.
So then what happens to the people that are respectful and just want to go? Okay, I wasn't allowed to go to a certain boys strip club club
Yeah.
because I'm a female,
That's right.
okay? And you don't get more gay
Wait.
boy ally than me, okay?
Tell
So,
that story, and we're not going to say which one.
please, you tell it.
But we went to a gay strip bar,
Mm-hmm.
and I had Schaefer, very good friend of the
show.
who is trans, female, and Faye. And of course, they wanted me to come.
Black card, Amex.
And it was, of course we want Al to come into this club. And I have Faye on one arm and the trans female on my other arm, and it's, but not them and not them. And it's like, oh no, there must be a mistake.
No, and I went like this. Is there women behind us? Because I couldn't believe it.
She's more of a gay boy than I am, and both ways. And I had to get the owner involved, and it was like ultimately the owner said, okay, but just don't tell my husband, who was the other owner, and they seated us. But it was like pulling teeth, because they were saying that bachelorette parties have gone in there in the past, and then they get white girl wasted, and then they fall over everybody and knock over the dancers, and then it gets messy. That's right. And the funny thing is, we're in this jam-packed strip club, a gay men strip club, and there's 200 gay men, and Faye and Schaefer, and the two most popular people for the dancers in the club are Faye and Schaefer. It was great for me. Schaefer, you're not moving from here. Faye, you're not moving from here. Great for me. Right?
Yes.
Because all the dancers were straight in the gay club. They're working. It's a job. That's it.
So, but for the article and the comparing gentrification itself to hetrification, I mean, it is true that gays move into neighborhoods that are on the decline or whatever. They clean them up. They make them look fabulous, and then the straights come in and take it over. I mean, that's been happening for decades.
Yeah.
So, I mean, do you see that?
It's called
It's called South Beach.
It's called
Chelsea.
Yeah. It's called Kitchen.
Park Slope. Yep.
So do we see that as a valid comparison in this regard? I mean,
Well, I do, and but I tend to fall on the side of John's observation. It's like we shouldn't complain because it's exactly what we asked for. You can't live in this bubble of going, I want a bubble of protection, but I want a bubble of acceptance, and I want that bubble to grow and grow and grow, and it grows to a certain point where you go, okay, now we have acceptance, and they come into our spaces. We can't say, oh no, I'm sorry. It's like the old seniors here in Florida, that they retire here and go, okay, but no more people can come. Wait, you came to Florida because it's Florida. Yeah. You can't say, but nobody else can come because you got to come.
Well, and
it's the same kind of thing.
And it's also like the police at Pride. It's like we want them to be there, right, to support us and to keep us safe, right? But there's a lot of people in our community that get easily triggered by seeing police presence, and for that reason, we don't want the cops there.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. One last thought, and I want to come to you, Max, on this. So you're 20, you're a Gen Zer. The point of this story of what the researchers are talking about in terms of the isolation of the need for the gay club to keep our space, is this an issue that you think teenagers, gay, LGBT teenagers, Gen Zers even think about? Is this something even on your radar?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that part of the reason why, right, is because this ties into so many other ways that queer culture becomes commodified through things like rainbow capitalism, through things like stealing of LGBT slang, and LGBT slang is kind of more AAVE than actual LGBT slang, but I don't need to get into that. But we see how this queer culture is commodified, is commercialized, and queer people are often priced out of queer experiences, even when you have more affluent people that also come into that space as well.
And related question to your answer there: does it even matter though? Because our Gen Zers in our LGBTQ community concerned, besides the observation you made, they're just going to move on and they're going to go into X or Y or Z, and it's not a traditional LGBT space, but they don't care. Is the balance of you can go anywhere you want as a Gen Zer and basically not give an F about anything that's going on, whereas perhaps, I won't even talk about anybody else at the table. Al, once upon a time, had to go into a Georgie's Alibi because it was the only place that would take an Al. Is that something that you think about?
I mean, I think that it's worth noting that there are still, you know, bars that are not queer-centric, that are not gay bars, that aren't very accepting. And when you go into a gay bar, you have that sort of solace of knowing that you're going into a space that's built, you know, by and for queer people, and that has that sort of sense of community that you might not get from.
So
from
you're
another
saying
bar.
it's still important?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
To have queer-specific spaces, absolutely.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out Television Network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBTQ plus community.